In this week's video, we will be doing 3 educational, fun, and interactive activities designed to help your kids learn all about the moon. First, we will be creating the surface of the moon using items you probably already have around your house. Then we'll be using other items of varying shapes and sizes to create impact craters representing asteroid impacts on the moon. And then using our newfound knowledge to make a replica of the moon, which we will then use in a separate demonstration to help understand how the different moon phases occur every month. Let's get started. Our moon is Earth's only natural satellite and is 240,000 miles away. So why are we going to dedicate a lesson to studying something so far away? Studying an impact crater is like studying a fossil. It has a wealth of information embedded in it. Plus, 24 astronauts have flown to the moon. 12 astronauts have walked on the moon's surface. And with NASA's new Artemis space program in the works with the initiative of establishing a long-term human presence on the moon, I figured it was time on this channel to dedicate a video to the moon. For the first experiment in recreating the lunar surface, what you're going to need is some flour. And depending on how big you want your surface to be, you may need a lot of it. So of course, whenever you need a lot of something, you go to Costco. And in addition to the flour, you're going to need other substances that are similar in nature, but they really need to be contrasting colors. And you don't need nearly as much. We ended up buying some taco seasoning, some bagel spices, and some turmeric powder. So our Costco run ended up looking like this, and trust me, you don't need nearly the amount of supplies that we did because we were going to be using a big container. But if you decided to use an oven pan, you can probably get by with the amount of materials that you already have in your house. So the first step in creating your lunar surface is to have a nice layer of flour on the bottom. And in hindsight, this was way too much flour because ultimately some of the objects, basically fruit, that we were going to be using to create the impact crater, instead of making a crater, just kind of sunk all the way to the bottom. So a 1-inch deep pan, probably about a 1/2 or 3/4 inch layer of flour, is going to give you much better results, like you can see when we repeated the process with the standard baking pan. After you've smoothed out your bottom surface of flour, the next step is to create your second layer using whatever substance you want to, as long as it has a contrasting color. And this layer can be really thin, just enough to cover the entire surface of flour beneath it. Once you have your lunar surface complete, the next step is to figure out what objects around the house you want to use to represent your meteorites. It's nice to have objects of various size to represent your meteors. So once you have your meteors, you can start making your impact craters. You can do this like my daughter did by slamming it in as hard as you can at an angle, or you can drop it straight down with a smaller force like my son did. It's great to do it with a variety of different sized objects and throwing them into the lunar surface at a variety of different angles. Doing this will create impact craters with different characteristics. So what are we learning from all of this? Studying the anatomy of a crater can tell us a lot about the circumstances that caused it. NASA has a website which we will link in the description below, which goes into great detail discussing the anatomy of a crater. Their website uses terms like floor, wall, ejecta, and rays. The floor of an impact crater is bowl-shaped or flat, and the walls are generally steep, connecting the floor to the lunar surface. The ejecta is defined as the material surrounding the crater that was excavated during the impact event. And the rays are defined as bright streaks starting from a crater and expanding away, oftentimes to great distances. You can definitely identify these terms when looking at high-resolution photos of the moon. So what's interesting is studying impact craters is a way for scientists to learn about the geology of a planet without ever stepping foot on it. After spending some time with our lunar surface and creating many different types of impact craters, it was time to use that knowledge and make our own moon. Using some styrofoam balls that we picked up at our local craft store, we began painting. I instructed the kids to draw several different craters of different sizes and to create impact craters that included variations of ejecta and ray patterns, illustrating asteroid impacts of varying angles and sizes. So if you do this with your kids at home, instead of them using one color and just drawing a circle of a crater, they can now use multiple colors representing ejecta and rays to really get more detail into their moon. And finally, we used these moons we created to illustrate how the different moon phases occur each month. To do this, you will need to be in a dark room and be able to place a light in the center. You can do this using a light like we used, or if you have a regular old lamp, it'll work better if you take the lampshade off. For the purposes of the video so we can film and it not be completely dark, the room in the video is a little bit lighter than you really want it to be. The darker the room, the better the effect on the moon it'll be, and the easier it'll be for your kids to visualize the different phases. For this, you're going to have your child hold up the moon to the light, a little bit above the level of their head. And their head, of course, is going to represent the Earth, and the light is going to represent the sun. Here is the setup, and as I said, you want the moon to be slightly above the level of your child's head for the experiment. At the start of the experiment, with their moon in between them and the light, their moon is going to be completely dark, and that's going to represent a new moon. Have them slowly rotate the moon around them, and as they rotate, they're going to be able to see the light being shown on the surface of their moon. Initially, they'll see a crescent moon, then they'll move on to being able to see a quarter, and when they have their moon on the other side of them, with them standing between the moon and the light, they will be able to completely visualize the moon, and of course that will represent a full moon. As they continue rotating, they'll see the third quarter moon, and they will rotate all the way back to their beginning position, seeing the new moon form again. This is an excellent way to have a hands-on demonstration to show them how the different phases of the moon occur each month. Additionally, if you have a globe at home, they'll be able to use the moon to visualize how the moon orbits around the Earth. As I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of really fun resources on the NASA website, which I will link in the description down below. I encourage you to go check them out. By the time this is posted, next month will be the annual Geminid meteor shower on December 13th. Hopefully you'll be able to take your kids out and see an excellent show. That's it for this week's video. Have a great day everybody, and we'll see you next week.